Okay, join me this time for a view or a look into the three wise men, a famous Christmas story that we have where the three wise men from the east, from Persia, had come and seeked out Jesus Christ because they knew the Savior had been born by watching the visions and signs in the sky and then the stars. And this hints towards zodiacal procession and special stars that may have shown up. People have found out that now it seems to be something that happened at 3 BC, and we'll get in all to that and look at who Jesus and the Son of Man actually was and the Savior. And it's usually depicted for some reason, which we'll also go into, but as being two white people and a dark-skinned person that come and see him. Two different variations of white people and a dark-skinned person. White, dark, white. White, white, dark. White, white, dark. I don't know if you can even see that. Let's see here. You know. White, white, dark. It's usually depicted in this form, and it's not just white people. It's actually the origin and the thoughts that it looked very much like the three wise men that are depicted here. And definitely always has this Persian turban camel feel to it, which of course is a lot of the Hebrew origins and the Persian people that were there near it and stuff. And these three wise men that usually look like a white guy, a Caucasian type dude, and a Arabic type man. When I was a child in choir in school, I was part of a trio that sang badly, but sang the song, "We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts, we travel so far." We all know this. We hear it during Christmas time and stuff, but so it's these Persian kings that come in, and yeah, let's look at these guys. Okay, and there's another story here just to interject in, and it now the whole story might take a little bit of a weird twist here, but yeah, the Star of Bethlehem may actually have something to do a little bit with the weed. Um, there is a few corroborative stories that these three wise men actually did exist, that they came from Persia and the land of Cush, and which would be like today we know it is like Hindu Kush. And if you know anything about pot or anything, that's an Afghani and Hindu Kush and all that type of stuff is the people that have been doing this for over 10,000 years and have the super stuff going on. And of course this is back then, but apparently it's not just some homegrown crap, or their homegrown was wow and whack. But there's also evidence that myrrh, people always, they know what gold and they know what frankincense was, but they don't know what myrrh was. And myrrh is actually something that's very much like hashish. And there are documents that have related to this story of the three wise men and how they had become lost looking for Christ whenever he was born. It even alludes to this story in the Bible itself, where they're going around and asking of kings and temples and stuff, and like, hey, have you seen the king that's supposed to come, the thing of the new deal? Well, how do they know that there's a new king coming, that there's a new dawn of a new age? And it's written in the stars, and the Star of Bethlehem, or whatever, the story goes. That's how the story goes. Well, there's a key to this, because why would they be bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh to a kid? What does the kid need with weed and stuff and everything? Well, these whole people over there, and in fact the Rastafarian, the religion from there also has the idea that it gets you closer to God, that you can have deep thoughts thinking about God while you're on weed or whatever, and when you stare off, that you can get sense of things, that whenever you get out away from civilization, able to really look at the stars and watch, and they were able to watch the stars for long-term progression and figure out the seasons and things like this. And the key to this is the fact that they know that this is the end of the zodiac procession, that there was an age. The zodiac goes through its 12, and I'm not going to do a whole thing on zodiac here, but it goes through its 12 calendar sets, and then it backs up one as it goes, almost like a wagon wheel when you see it going. The wagon's going forward, but it looks like it's going backward slowly. And that's why they use a wagon wheel in a lot of the things for it too, by the way, because it had the magic of God in it. Whenever it did the backwards thing, it was a visual concept that actually is something that works on our eyes in the same way as like the old silent movies did. But I digress. Let's look at this again. I found another one of these scrolls that actually contained the story of the three wise men that come out of Persia, and that they, well, we can just kind of look at it here, that it recants them coming to Bethlehem, and the Sea of Galilee is where they found it in a cave. A recently translated ancient scroll found buried deep in a cave near the Sea of Galilee has created a firestorm among religious scholars around the world. The document, a ledger kept by what appears to have been a cannabis merchant named Sufri, records a large transaction of gold and frankincense to a traveler named Melchior. Now, that's one of the three Magi's names, and it's in the picture that I showed you and stuff just a minute ago. He's the guy that's the one that has the 10 going out, and they're all leaning in the Taurus thing that shows you the dawning of a new age, as well as the purchase of a considerable amount of the aromatic plant resin myrrh. Okay, and so what is myrrh? Well, that would be like opium, but what they do is they grind up a bunch of the weed and they put it into the opium, and then they press it real hard, and then you wafer off chunks of that and smoke it, and that's what is like original hash, not the crap that people try to do today and stuff, but it actually at one time kind of was held together with opium, this thing that when you put that together, like keef and ground up weed and opium together, you would make this resin that's called myrrh. So there's an article where they're talking to this forensic theologian, and look at mummy bodies and things like that, and they were one of the people that have noticed that there's tobacco, which doesn't even come from there. There's tobacco in the Egyptians and stuff, and also cocaine, which makes no sense whatsoever, that they found. Now look it up if you want to. I'm not going to put anything in this about it, but they actually found cocaine and tobacco in mummies in the mummies, and this is something that have to be from America. So apparently they had gotten this from before, but of course it's never grown over here for some reason. Anyhow, this Kate Mulligan, she says clearly this covertly refers to cannabis, says forensic theologian Kate Mulligan. It's known fact that the three wise men on their sojourn for the boy Christ were lost for many days, possibly even months, perhaps in the fashion of "Dude, where's my car?" So they're all kind of like, okay, he's got to be here somewhere because the stars point here. These three wise men coming from the east actually, in a lot of Gnostic depictions, show a stance that seems to be very reminiscent of the stance of Mithra, and where he stands on the bull and heralding in the end of the age of Taurus. And you can see in this depiction above the guy on the right the star that's supposed to be in the heavens. You also notice the date palms of the Sumerians, the Phrygian cap that designates Mithra, and the knowledge that the Persian people themselves. So let's look into this here. This gets deep. Okay, and this is a famous fresco that's been done here that shows that same leg posture for some reason without the knees. And I keep seeing it in a few different pictures, but we'll utilize this one right here to show you what it actually takes, or what it means and what it does. They all have this similar posture. These are the three magi, the three wise men, and they show you here that they're connected to. Let's use this guy right here as a good example. You see his legs and his stature and how it looks like a big K, and then that's actually Taurus. Taurus has the Pleiades down here by his feet. There's the Pleiades, and how that applies to Mithra is that it contains this same representation right here. And so it is giving you the depiction of Taurus. And ironically, he's killing Taurus in the actual pictures or statues that they have of him, and this is what gave us the hint that he's always in that thing, always in that same posture. And so that posture actually equates here to the sign of Taurus. Notice how both of these are shown with that Phrygian cap. They also contain a green cloak. It's something that really has to do with the Mithra religion, where this is the colors that he sports and everything. So they're actually trying to say that he's one of the three wise men, people are saying. And I'm, no, he's not one of the three wise men. He's the sun. He's the sunshine. And the sunshine is not one of the three wise men necessarily, unless you want to say it's the sun, the moon, and the stars that came and visited. And there's a good hint of what they're trying to insinuate. But really, the three wise men are actually something different. And as mentioned in one of my little vids that I do here, the actual true birth date of Christ was actually September 11th. I figured that out through long, exhausting work, and then I was looking through my tablets, people. I was sitting there knowing that I saw that number before. I saw it in Egyptian things or something. I was looking through, and yeah, I found it in the Egyptian things. But right whenever I saw it on the piece of paper and I looked at the word September 11th, whenever I saw it in the Egyptian stuff I had written, I realized in that 1 second there, all of a sudden, oh, September 11th. And then it just dawned on me, that's why they did the two pillars right there. That's why they killed the Asherah pillars on Christ's birthday. That's what that was about. This is the way the sky would be depicted at Christ's birth, and you can see how the conjunctive planets come down through, and Jupiter is in Virgo, and the sun and the moon are there, and it looks like she birthed the sun, and because it's over the actual constellation itself, so they say it's clothed in it or whatever, and it actually comes from her tummy and goes right up between her legs. So this is the birth of the sun from Virgo, and it's a real lot of. This only happens about every 7,000 years, and although they say that, but then again, it happened 2,000 years ago plus a few, and apparently the last time it happened was this event, 3 BC, September 11th, and it's fixing to happen September 23rd of this year, which scares the hell out of me. Where each year, as the sun comes down into its lowest point on the sky for a day, that it dies on December 21st. In other words, it doesn't go any lower, but it also doesn't come back up. And it hesitates for 3 days and then starts to rise again. And it does so right near a constellation called the Southern Cross. So ancient Gnostics, somewhere 300-400 BC, mentioned the fact that the sun dies on December 21st, hung on the cross, and 3 days later it will rise again. This is the symbolicness inside of the zodiac and the way that the processions of stars work to understand our seasons. And it has been twisted into an odd thing that we have now as a people, but understand that the idea of Jesus is the idea that the sun goes to its lowest point in the winter, gets rebirthed, and then comes back. Easter is the equinox point. Whenever it starts to get lighter and lighter and lighter, the sun comes up higher and higher and higher, and at Easter, the equinox, now light overtakes darkness through the summer, It starts again back in the winter time, whenever you come into winter and you go into like Halloween and the Festival of Samhain. It reaches its lowest point coming into December 21st. He dies. 3 days later, he's resurrected after having been on the cross. This is where we get this from. In fact, this Southern Cross actually does this circular dance around the southern celestial pole as it does each year around. And you can see as it comes around and in November and December, it ends up being right into that position, just a little left of center at the bottom where you see December at. And that is the delineation that shows up where Orion runs down through that star of Sirius and down to there. So the sun comes down, gets hung on the cross, then goes back up, and he arises. This cross goes back down, and it flips and goes in circles. Another place that you can get this 3 days risen type effect out of, and clay tablets found in Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, do reveal the most important god of the time was Sin, the moon. And Sin, the moon, actually does do something odd where the moon will go to being a dead moon as it becomes less and less a sliver. Then after 2 extra days, it starts to be a new moon and being resurrected out of it. Now, there's a lot of people that put the resurrection to being something like that because the moon had to do with it, and that the sun shines on the moon, so it's a reflection of the moon, and the reflection of is like the sun of, if you will, and that they tried to equate this to it. I still think it really has to do just with the sun, but I wanted to show you this interesting effect where you get the other zodiacal idea that the death and resurrection stories for Jesus and everything ends up coming from this story and from the sun going down to its lowest point during December 21st through 25th, and that's where we celebrated at. That's actually the reason for it. It's actually the rebirth of the sun, not the sun. I don't know if you could tell the difference there. No, no one can. Latin was built for that reason, actually. Egyptians have this same relief done in Senmut's tomb, where it actually shows you a bull phallic symbol going across the top, which would have been the Pleiades, and Orion's belt here, aligning through to where the sun would be at. And that this star of the gods comes in and denotes, or this guy pointing towards that point, and that shows you that the new age comes. And here how all the gods came to see the new age. And there are even depictions in South America where it actually shows us this Orion and its offsettingness. A lot of people didn't catch this for years and years off of it. This is a bowl that they find, a ceremonial bowl, and you can see how it's been cut out. So this thing isn't going to hold any water. Well, it's not really for holding water at all. It's for knowledge. And you can see these guys sitting here. It looks like they've got some kind of breathing device stuck in front of their faces. Whatever that has to do with anything. They're controlling these little discs they have with their hands. There's the sign of the crosses in here that are squared off crosses, which is a Christianity sign from way back when. They show a raccoon in the symbol here, and I don't know what the raccoon has to do with it unless it's a lunar creature, okay? And so you can get this little dot that's on his stomach there. And I believe that what we're looking at is the opposite, or flipped upside down, if I could flip this picture, of Orion lining up with Sirius, the raccoon, I guess, and doing its thing. You can see how the depiction shows the slight offness of it, and then over here how you have that same offness of it. So, now, that center of the raccoon is Ra's symbol, the sun god. But in doing so, I don't know where they get the raccoon thing from. I had no idea raccoons symbolize this to South American people, but I'll look into that. Raccoons may have a lot more to do with anything. That bandit-looking little weasel. Yeah. You can actually find this matchup that's going on even into ancient Turkey and the Orata region, where you can find this coin, and it utilizing the lion and the stars along with it, showing you that on it has the stars, and above it are the 3 stars that are offset of Orion. Now this dates this thing too, because you have to go back quite some thousands of years to end up having this actual depiction that shows on this thing here, and it's with Nimrod Dagai. So this actually equates Nimrod and Dagon together in at the same time at this place. And this all relates back to Mithra, and Mithra, who is the reborn sun god of up to 1200 BC. And actually it looks like it's coming close to 2100 BC when you would have this actual revelation, because the equinoxes precess every about 2160 years. And if this was showing him killing Taurus and leading into the next age, then that would have been 2600 years before Christ, whatever it showed up right before Aries, I guess you would say. And so it would be heralding the season of Aries by killing off the bull. And you know, there's just too many striking resemblances here where the thing, you know, it looks like Statue of Liberty, but then it's born on December 25th, had 12 disciples, performed miracles, dead for 3 days, resurrected. Yeah, interestingly, they have Sunday worship with the Sunday. It was written for Sol Invictus Sunday. It's what we worship on today. And if you find in the Bible, the Sabbath is actually Saturday, and that's because they were worshiping Saturn, the guy that kills and eats his own children. And that's where you get the Hebrew idea, and a lot of these ancient people back there idea that you were supposed to eat your firstborn, and all these weird things that they were doing back then is through this type of representation. This small list right here is just some of the important ones, and it gets people's eyes to going, what? But again, on the way out of this video, I'm going to show you what they did on that game show and the list that's actually there, that he was an immortal god that was reborn on earth as a mortal to do his works for us. He had the halo on his head, the whole 9 yards to go with that. And that's where we get the halo depiction from, is from this type of thing here. And it grows into that. So let's look at that last video on the way out. And when we find who Christ really is, this man, Mithra.
Media. There are amazing things claimed about Mithras, and I'll read you some of them. He was a savior, Mithras, sent to earth to live as a mortal, through whom it was possible for sinners to be reborn into immortal life. He died for our sins, but came back to life the following Sunday. He was born of a virgin on December the 25th in a manger or perhaps a cave, attended by shepherds, and became known as the light of the world. He had 12 disciples with whom he shared a last meal before dying. His devotees symbolically consumed the flesh and blood of him. Because Mithras was a sun god, he was worshipped on Sundays. Is he a tribute band? He with a halo around his head. And Mithras gave each other gifts on December the 25th. The leader of the religion was called the Papa, and HQ was on Vatican Hill in Rome. And you're kind of writing off the chat of this as just a massive coincidence.
Yeah, just a massive coincidence. Yeah. Yeah, just a massive coincidence. And you'd say that, well, they've got to be copying them and stuff and everything. Yeah, you'd agree that somebody's copying somebody when you find out Mithras is peaked at about 300 BC before any of the Christ things, and it actually came out of the sun god Shamash and the Babylonian aspects of things. That just really starts to, you know, make you wonder. It's from the Ahura Mazda strain and things. You can find that him and all through the Zoroastrianism and things like that, that people do try to equate that comes about. And equates to being, you know, the bringer of that, or where they must have just kifed most of it from. Surely they got some difference. They go, we do this, yeah, whatever. The basis of it, the rest of it, you know. And so worshiping the sun and the Christmas tree together is something that actually came from the ancient Sumerians, which is looking like it's some 7,000 years ago, at least as far as recorded time. And then these people are probably, and most likely, the Errata people before that. So it comes from there. The legends of Semiramis and other things. I still embrace it. It's Mother Nature and all the things that make up, you know, if all these people thought this was God, it's God. So, Merry Mithras, everybody, and have a Happy New Year.